Good morning. You guys excited to be here today? Right. This class is a little bit different, right, as far as our back injury prevention. We ran this last year and a couple of years before, but I think this group is the largest that we've ever had for this class. And I suspect that you guys are here because you want to learn how to protect that back, right? Is that what it is? Yeah. That's what we're going to spend some time talking about, how to protect your back, pretty much is what it is. Because if any of you guys have ever experienced a back injury before, you know what that is like as far as it does not go away. You know, it's not like it happened 10 years ago, so today I'm good. That's not how it works for a back injury. I mean, it's yours forever. It's like a child of yours that you will own for the rest of your life is how the way that works, right? So our job is to make sure that we try to avoid back injuries to begin with. And there are certain ways that we'll go about doing it while still trying to get our jobs done. And it's not like you guys work for some industrial company wherein you know the exact weight of the item that's coming towards you, right? It could be a different way, you know, whether you're moving soil or you're just moving a heavy object or whatnot. It's just different objects, different size, different configuration or whatnot. So it's very difficult sometimes to judge what all is coming at you as far as the amount of weight that you're going to have to lift. But I just encourage you guys to always apply safe lifting techniques, which we'll go over today. And we're also going to talk about the importance of you stretching, you know, and loosening up before you start working every single day. Is that something that you guys do here? You know, stretch, a little bit of stretching? Yeah. Yeah, awesome, Chris. That's good, right? So we're going to do some of those. We're going to talk about the 5 stretches that they actually do recommend for those who are in the physical demanding type job like you guys are in. And we encourage you guys to do it, not just at the beginning of the shift, but throughout the course of your day. Fixing to lift a heavy object or whatnot, want to make sure that we loosen up and ask for help. You know, that's one thing that we all shy away from. You know, trying to do it on our own, and you don't have to. You know, if there's help available, by all means, won't you go ahead and ask for help and lend a hand whenever someone needs a hand, just the same way. As far as what our objective is today is to talk to you guys about back injuries and the facts behind it. Because a lot of times you hear folks say, well, you know what, I got hurt. Doctor said my disc slipped. Ever heard of that one before? A slip disc? Right? And you'll see as we go through it that it really doesn't slip. You know, that disc that you're trying to protect, I mean, it has a sac. It's a sac with fluid in it, pretty much is what that is. And if we constantly bend forward improperly, you know, sitting between the vertebrae, it will constantly push the fluid to the back. And eventually it will rupture and it will leak the fluid out. So all of a sudden you have vertebrae against vertebrae, pretty much is what you have. Or the disc extends far enough out after that rupture where it's actually hitting a nerve is what that is. So it really doesn't slip. Everything is, for the most part, still in its form. But our goal is to make sure that we try to manage that disc, whatever is in it, that liquid that's in it. We want to make sure we manage it and keeps it as balanced as possible. Again, when you bend forward, you push the fluid backwards. So one of the things that we want to talk about is a standing back bend, which is to bend backwards every now and then, you know, to kind of balance it out and push it forward a little bit. If you keep going in one direction, eventually, I mean, it will rupture on you. We'll talk about why back injuries occur, and some risk factors associated with it. It's not always the weight of the object, right? It's not always the weight of the item that you're lifting. Sometimes it's just your form. Ever heard of anyone who got hurt not lifting anything heavy? Right? There's one employee that I worked with in my previous job. He just reached over for his keys that fell on the ground, and that was it. And he was in his 30s when he had that injury. And they told him back surgery or whatnot. He did that, and he's never been back to work. I mean, that was it. So it's not always the weight of the object you're lifting. Sometimes it's the technique. Sometimes it's just our general health to begin with. You know, that's a contributor factor. We'll talk about some common causes, and we're going to talk about how to prevent them. And we talk about ergonomics. Ergonomics is how we get you guys in the area that you're actually working in and make sure that it fits you is what that is, right? What OSHA says is that we ought to make sure that 95% of the employees, you know, are a perfect fit for the area that you're working in. Meaning, if you put me in a heavy equipment to work in, you know, it's not going to be one size fit all for when I sit there because I'm vertically challenged. You know, I might not have the same line of sight as everyone else. You know, so they ask that we make adjustment and make sure that we accommodate not 100%, but at least 95% of your employees. So we'd have to make adjustments and make sure that it's the right fit. And even with the heavy equipment that you guys run, a lot of times we focus a great deal in as far as when we replace these equipment. You know, we're putting mileage on them or our hours. But we're also putting mileage and hours on those seats that you're running. You know, and you look at all that vibration going on as you guys are operating some of these heavy equipment. I mean, the seats will wear out, you know, and that's one thing that we had to do in a couple of departments where we had to actually just change the seats out. That was it, you know, because folks would complain about the rough ride, the bumpy ride or whatnot. And if you're in that cab for 8-10 hours per day running that piece of equipment, eventually you will have that back injury. So when you identify those things, say something to someone, you know, and as far as just replacing the seat, we should be able to make that happen for you guys, you know. They replace chairs all day in the offices that they sit in. It's the same concept, but you're running yours a little bit harder. So inspect your heavy equipment that you guys run, and if you do run them, and just make sure that you point it out to someone, you know, if the seat needs to be replaced. As far as how to treat back injuries, and I think you guys know this, because after a rough day at work, you work real hard. The first thing you go home, what's the first thing that you do when you get home? As far as taking care of your back? He said eat and sleep. What's the first thing that you do when you get home to take care of your back? You lay down? A cold beer, got you. So cold is good actually, because when you experience a back injury, it says in the first 48 hours you ought to apply ice, you know. So ice is what we're looking for the first 48 for mild injuries. And beyond the first 48, they recommend that you go with heat. And sometimes you still go with a combination of both anyway, you know, like the 10-15 minutes on, 10-15 minutes off, just to treat the pain and all that. As far as why back injuries occur, this is what I mentioned as far as a little sac right here. Can you all see this little blue section right here? That's that little sac that has a fluid in it that we keep pushing backwards a little bit too much when we bend over incorrectly, right? When we bend over, we push it backwards. So what we ask that you do is try to do the standing back bend to counteract that forward bending that we're doing. But more importantly, keep your back in its natural form. Your back is, when you look at the your spinal column, it's not straight. You know, so when folks ask you to sit up straight or stand straight or whatnot, we're just asking to keep it in its natural form. You know, it's always going to be in that S curve. And towards the very end down here is your lumbar area, and that acts as your fulcrum, basically. It's that pivot point when you bend over to pick an object up, and you're asking your body to raise that object back upwards, right? Whatever that object weighs, I'm going to pick it up. But because my hands are fully extended, the weight of the object is a little bit heavier than what it normally would weigh. You know, it feels a whole lot heavier. And you picture this, you're picking up an item that weighs 10 pounds and you keep it close to your body, it's going to feel like 10 pounds. But as I begin to extend my arms out, you know, it gets a little bit heavier. Just something as simple as a 2-liter bottle of Coke. You pick that up and you have it close here. You could hold this forever, right? But you try to do this, and don't do it here at work, because I don't want it to be a workers' comp. But if you don't try it at home, just to see what it feels like, big difference, night and day. So when you're picking up any item, you know, what we ask you to do is, if possible, try to get it close to your body, as close as possible to your body, so it feels like it's natural weight. Kind of like your bodybuilders, you see how they lift the weights, right? Everything is right up close to their body. So we ask that you do the same. Close grip, get close to it, and firm grip on it. All right, and this is what I just mentioned as far as the first bullet right here. It talks about the lower back. It holds most of the body's weight. And when I'm picking that object up, when I bend over incorrectly, it's the weight of the object that I'm picking up, that I'm raising back upward, but also my upper body. You know, that has to come back up. So I'm just asking my lower back to do all that work. And sometimes it's a bit much. When you're raising an object, you know, again, I just mentioned as far as it went about 10 pounds. It feels like 10 pounds when it's close to your body, right? But the moment we begin to extend it outward, there's a ratio that they go by. Fully extended, it's 10 times. It feels as though, it doesn't weigh 10 times the weight. It feels as though you're exerting that much force on your lower back is what that is when we bend incorrectly. So an object weighing 10 pounds, it would take me about 10 pounds on the other side to actually raise it. 10 pounds of force. The same object weighing 10 pounds here, right? The ratio is 10 to 1, so all of a sudden it's going to take me just about 100 pounds of, it feels like 100 pounds, you know, as far as the amount of force that I might have to exert in order to raise it. So the idea is to keep it close to your body so it feels exactly the weight the object is. The average upper torso, you know, of a person, you know, the average, it's only 105 pounds, right? So if my arms are fully extended, 105 here and I have 10 pounds here, it's 115 pounds. I'm going to ask my lower back to pivot back upright. And if the ratio is still 10 to 1, you know, because I'm fully extended out here, it's going to feel 10 times the total weight right here. So it's going to be just 1,150 pounds of force. It doesn't weigh that much, but that's what it feels like on your lower back. So if I was just carrying a little bit of extra weight, every now and then we do, that would just add to the equation. So I talked about general health earlier, and that's what I mean. Because the first thing you'll do when you go to your doctor and you complain about this back injury or whatnot, it's not to a point where you're out of work, but you just go there and say, my back hurts or whatnot. The first thing they're going to ask you to do is to work on the core. Because this directly relates to what's going on back here. And we don't want you to be able to do 500 sit-ups or push-ups. That's not what we're looking for, but we want you to try to strengthen this as best as you can. Do you guys do sit-ups? Anyone of y'all fool that stuff? You do sit-ups? Got you. Who said that? Bad for your back?
I said that.
You're absolutely right. And that's me. That's how it feels for me. Because when I lay down, I'm starting to do the sit-ups or the crunches or whatnot, you start feeling on your back. And for me, it's simple because I know I have scoliosis. So my curve is a little bit worse than yours. So that's painful. I cannot do it, so I don't fool with that stuff. So how do you target the abs if you're not able to do sit-ups?
Biscuits and gravy.
Who was that? He said biscuits and gravy. Got you. And that might work, right? So here's what you're going to do then. You're going to put the biscuits on this side, right? And the gravy on this side. And just standing, you don't reach for both, right? It's the same concept as far as what you do on the ground. And the same thing, you crunch and you curl just the same way here as you tighten your core. It works. I mean, that's how I do mine, and I don't worry about feeling it here, and I still get to target the core. So it's something that you can do on your own at home. Because I know some of y'all probably wouldn't even work out in front of the other guys here, would you? Would you do stretches in front of anybody here at work?
Oh, yeah.
You would? You should.
No shame in this game.
Awesome, right? And we'll see, because later on, when we're towards the end, we're going to actually do some of these stretches in this room. But you do it because you benefit. Do it because it helps you to stay healthy. All right. As far as the risk factors, there are two types. There are personal risk factors and the potential risk factor. Personal risk factor is everything about me that I bring to the job. Everything about me that I bring to the task that I'm assigned today. And your potential risk factor has everything to do with the area that you're working in and the type of work that you're performing. So your overall health. I did mention how that could factor in. If I'm a little bit overweight, yeah, of course, it's the extra weight that I have to move around. As far as one's age, I know the younger employees tend to feel as though they're more invincible. They can move a whole lot and get a whole lot more done, But as you get older, you experience one of those back injuries. It takes you a little bit longer to recover, right? And not just an injury, but just strain and the extra exertion that you put on your body that day when you worked really hard. It takes you a little bit longer to recover. So that's why you'll find the more experienced employees, after a very hard day at work, they'll go home. I mean, I'm not hurt, but you'll do that bath, that Epsom salt bath. Do you all do that stuff? Ever done that? Epsom salt? It works. Ice works, absolutely. Ice works, and the Epsom salt, that does it also, just the same way. Not just when you have an injury, but just after a hard day at work. As far as smoking, that affects your overall health, and eventually it targets the red blood cells, and it's not allowed to repair itself, as we smoke. So I just encourage you guys to work on cutting that. And I know you've been working on it, but work on cutting that out as best as you can. As far as stress, how does stress factor into me sustaining a possible back injury? How can stress lead to a back injury? See, I told you, yeah. Say it again?
I say women.
Women, gotcha. Right. How does stress lead to a back injury? Or how could it lead to a back injury? Well, you've noticed the difference when there's an accident involving that drunk driver and that person who's sober. Who's more likely to get hurt in that accident? The sober person. Especially when the sober person sees it coming. Right? So their body will be tense. You are going to brace for it, while the drunk driver doesn't brace for anything. I haven't seen anything coming. So they're a little bit more relaxed, so less likely to get hurt in that accident. So the more tense we are as far as our body is concerned, the more likely it is that we might get hurt as we go out there and try to work. And just when you're inebriated, I mean, when you're impaired, it could cause you to have just an accident in general, period, not just back injuries. Now, outside hobbies and sports, that's big. You know, we play hard, you know, at home, and we work hard here at work. And sometimes those two meet. You know, you go home and you're playing a good game of football or whatever it is that you're playing, or playing basketball, you're going real hard. You could sustain that injury then. But then we don't realize it until, you know, we're doing something else at work. And vice versa. You know, you work real hard at work, and then you go home and you're playing with kids or whatnot, and you sustain that injury. Just make sure that we are mindful of that wherever we are, whether it's work or at home, that we are not working our bodies too hard. That even then, we warm up, we loosen up, we stretch our muscles to prepare for what we're about to put it through in that day. All right. The poor physical condition, did mention that's a big part of it. And it has to do with our postures also, as far as the way that we sit, the way we stand, the way we sleep, and the whole nine. If I were to freeze you guys right now in this class, you know, just where you are, and look at how you guys are sitting down, you know, I think there are a couple of you guys who are sitting upright, you know, but for the most part, you guys are relaxed, you know, and you're laid back, or you lean forward, or you lean to the side, or whatnot. But we have to make it a habit, you know, as far as how we sit in our vehicles, as far as how we sit in a chair like this, or as far as how we're out there standing, you know. And if you're out there standing, you're standing an extended period of time, one of the things that they ask that you do is feet shoulder apart just the same way. And your knee should not be locked in, you know. It should be slightly bent as far as your knees. And just offset them, you know, one foot forward, more forward than the other, and then you rotate as needed. But that's only if you're standing in that position for an extended period of time is what we recommend. So make sure that we try our best to get in shape as best as we can. I know they open up those gyms, and they just adjusted the hours for the gym in the square. They're open from, I think it's 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., you know, so I encourage you guys to take advantage of that. And even here, it doesn't take a gym. You don't have to have all these equipments or whatnot. But before the start of your shift, you know, put the time in. And I doubt your supervisor is going to get on you if they see you stretching, you know, before you get started working. Matter of fact, they would encourage that. All right? Looking for the gray shirts. They would encourage that, right? Sure. Encourage folks to actually loosen up and prepare for the task you're about to undertake. All right, and that's the poor posture that we mentioned, you know. Try to sit upright as best as you can. Keep that back in its natural form is what we're going to try to do. And the extra weight, just try to shed it, you know, as best as you can. And there are folks in our office right now who are going around and they're doing all these different challenges, trying to lose weight and the whole nine. And I was talking to a young lady yesterday who, she said she lost like 10 pounds in a couple of weeks without even exercising in one day. What do you think the biggest factor is? What's the one thing that you can cut out from your diet that can actually help you to drop some pounds? Soda, right? And especially the sweet one. It's your sugar, right? So just something to think about as far as simple changes that you can make. And if you don't want to just quit soda immediately and you try to diet, the diet can work. But those fake sweeteners, right, it will cause you to crave the real sugar even more. So you just consume a little bit more of that. But if you can get away from the soda, that's a big start. You know, but what's your sugar intake? Because that sugar will convert into carbs, and from carb it goes to fat if you don't burn it off. It's pretty much what that is. So just something to begin with. You know, start working on cutting back on the sugar and the carbs in your diet, and do the exercises. You know, if you're able to. You know, the extra walking and stuff like that. You don't always have to drive around here on the. Is it Cushman that y'all use to go from one building to another, or whatever it is, right? Every now and then it's okay, you know, that you walk from one building to another and try to get those steps in. So those are just different ways that you can get in shape, right? And we'll talk about the tense muscles. More likely to experience that injury, you know, when you get that shock, that hit from that accident, or from just that bump you're riding in that vehicle that doesn't have the cushion in the seat anymore. All right. So as far as the potential risk factors, that includes the weight of the object that you're lifting. Right? If it's heavy, of course it's going to put more strain on my body. The frequency, how often I'm moving it. So we had a class, a back injury prevention class at Central for Central and not Central System Maintenance, and I was there talking about you know as far as things that I did in the past, because how I got into safety was with Coca-Cola, and those guys were moving the soda, you know, 10 cases of 2 liters. Those things are heavy. So what we had to do is, because we had so many back injuries, we had to go out there and actually weigh these things. And there's a big difference between your Diet Coke versus your regular Coke as far as sugar is concerned. Big difference as far as weight. But we got out of all those injuries because we had to change our equipment. We went from the regular hand truck that you saw them using, because if you're going down steps or upstairs, with 10 cases of 2 liter, it's a lot of strain on your lower back. So what we went with was just a stair climber is what we call it. Those equipments were expensive, like $3,500 each. But when you look at the cost of a back injury, the pain that the employee had to experience or whatnot, I mean, it was worth it, and that's how we got rid of that. But then we're talking to them, and we started talking about the unconventional things that you guys work with. The manhole lid that you have to remove weighs about, 90 pounds or even more sometimes, right? Real heavy. And I was saying to them, there are things that we can purchase for that too, and that we can actually use to remove them. So I went in with a mindset, manhole lid is flush on the pavement or whatnot. You go over there with a magnetic system, you raise it up and you move it over. Piece of cake is what I'm thinking. And then they said, well, what about the elevated ones? What about the cone-shaped ones? Started thinking about the ones that are 4 or 5 feet off the ground. How do I get up there and remove that safely? So there are going to be some challenges. It's not perfect as far as what we talk about here. But if you have those unique challenges, you can let me know about them. Let's take a look at it and see how we can make it a little bit safer. And as part of what happened that day, we're going to actually have that little route inspection. We're going to go ahead and take a look at it and see how we can make it safer. And at first, when they mentioned that, I was thinking maybe about 50 or 60 of those, but no, they said it's thousands of them we have across the county. So we're going to have to put action to what we're talking about as far as how to make people a little bit safer, how to properly remove that lid, perform the work that I need to perform, and replace a lid that weighs 90 pounds, up above my head or whatnot. So we're going to take a look at it. So if you have unique situations like that, by all means, let me know about it, and we'll see how we can better set it up so that you guys can work a little bit safer. Load placement, as far as where we're going to actually place the load. Just map it out before I even touch it. As far as I'm going to pick this up today, here's where I'm going to place it. Just have it in mind as far as where I'm going to go with it, and not, have it in hand and then try to figure out what you're going to do with it. The distance of the load from the body, that's the most important. Keep it close to your body, in what we call your power zone. Your power zone is the area directly between your shoulder and your upper thigh. It's where your hands freely move. You're not extending too far out, or too far up. So ideally, we want to lift here, but there are going to be some times where you're going to go above that head, So we just ask that you exercise caution as you do that. Avoid twisting and turning, right? So if I'm picking up an object right here, I shouldn't twist like this to lower it, right? You should be at least 3 feet away from where you're going to lower it. So it forces you then to turn around, take a step, pivot, and lower the object as needed. So just make sure that you don't set things up where it forces you to do this, because that weight that I have in my hand, I'm just twisting around with that, putting that on my lower body as I make those twists and turns. Avoid reaching outside of your power zone, right? But again, there are going to be times where you have to just make sure that you're very careful with it, but try to avoid it. And avoid upward body positioning, and that one is tough. Because sometimes you're out there working in an area, you just dug a little trench, a little hole to repair a water line, if that's the case. I use that example. And you will twist and turn to get in there to make it happen. You're not always going to be able to dig it out and drop a trench box in there. Sometimes it's not big enough. You don't need to do all of that, and create that much room. So you will twist and turn sometimes, given the nature of the job that you guys do. But just make sure that you're loosening up your body and preparing it for what you're fixing to do every single day. Some additional potential risk factors is sometimes we're in a hurry, right? And a lot of accidents, from my experience, happens towards the end of one shift when I'm almost done. I'm watching the time, I'm almost there, and I might take a shortcut. Might skip a step, just trying to make it happen, and I get hurt. Sometimes folks are just careless, and I wouldn't say that about any of our employees here at Cobb County, because you guys are all super responsible as far as what you do, but there are times we're a little bit careless, though. We take shortcuts, we walk in areas that we're not supposed to. We lift more than we should sometimes. And again, it's the improper lifting techniques, right? It's improper lifting techniques. There's a right way to do everything. As far as proper lifting technique, it begins with your feet, again, being shoulder width apart. And we ask that you learn to lift with your leg muscles, And the one way you can tell real quickly if I'm lifting with my leg or my back is when you're bending over. If you keep it back in its natural form as you bend over and pick your object up, while the knees are bent, you're okay as you're coming back up. But whenever you have that little hunch in that back, when you're picking up anything, that's how you know that I'm using my back then, you know, not my leg muscles. So keep the feet shoulder width apart, and we're gonna grasp opposite ends. We're gonna bend, you know, and grab the object, you know, and if you have help on the other side, great. And we're gonna lift together, you know. Make sure that we keep the back in its natural form. It should not be hunched over like that. The moment you feel that as you're lifting anything, you know, I'm using my lower back to make it happen, right? So always make sure that you bend at the knees and keep the back in its natural form. We want to make sure that we grasp the object. If it has handles on it, we want to make sure that we use the handles. If not, opposite ends is where we're going to try to shoot for as far as getting a firm grip on the object, on the load, to make sure that we're in control. And if you're team lifting, it's important that you guys keep in good communication as you're lifting, because what will happen from time to time is that you'll drop your end before I drop mine. You know, we had one of those injuries at DOT. They're picking up guardrails, and those things are heavy. And you tag team it, and you're moving, and the person gets to their point, and they let go off of it. You know, that'll send a shock, a jolt all the way through your body. I mean, it can cause an injury then. So just make sure that we keep in communication. All right. Did mention the heavy lifting. Lighten the load whenever you're able to. And if you're not able to lighten it by physically removing items, then what we're going to do is make sure that we get help. All right, that's the twist and turn that we talked about. Try to avoid doing that as best as you can. Avoid reaching outside of your power zone. And again, your power zone is the area directly between your shoulder and your upper thighs. We'll make sure that we keep it in the load in that area. All right, talk about objects with odd shape, you know, and we have tons of that as far as what you guys work with, your tools and equipment, but just make sure that we're applying best practices as best as possible. As far as body positioning, you're not always able to position and square up the load like you should. So what we ask that you do is make sure that if there's another object or item in the road in the way, just remove it, you know, so we can get in there. But just try to avoid twisting and turning too much. Make sure that we kneel as needed if the object is on the ground. And as I just demonstrated, make sure that we kneel and bring our power zone to that object. You know, it's not always going to be on a working platform or a table that we're going to be able to remove the object from. A lot of times it's from the ground as far as what you guys do. So just make sure that we're kneeling and crouching and bringing our power zone to the object. When sitting and standing for an extended period of time, we ask that every now and then you take a break and loosen up your neck muscles or your back, just standing back bends or arm and shoulder stretches or whatnot. But that's mainly for folks who are actually sitting in office all day. You know, you guys don't do that. You're constantly on the move or whatnot, so doesn't apply as much. But if you're out there standing, you know, if the work requires that you're standing out there for an extended period of time, part of a crew performing work, if you're that person who's the authorized attendant, you know, doing a confined space entry job function, then you will be staying in that position for an extended period of time. That's why I mentioned earlier, feet shoulder width apart still. You know, one foot forward a little bit ahead of the other, and just slightly bend the knees. You know, it should not be locked in position. Definitely avoid slip and falls. And if it's within a facility as far as where you guys are and it's liquid spill you have or whatnot, by all means try to get on it as quickly as possible. But sometimes it's our footing, it's our footwear, you know, as far as the shoes are concerned. And sometimes it's just flat out slick as far as the bottom is concerned. If you're working in a trench and you get out, there's mud all over your boot and whatnot, and you walk into a grassy area at an incline and whatnot, there's potential for you to fall just the same way. So think about those things as you guys are out there working, and make sure that we try to avoid slip and falls. And with the slip and fall, I mean, it's not just the back then. You know, it's not just the back. And even the hard hat that you were probably wearing that day might not even help you, you know, as far as protecting your head if you were to experience a slip and fall. Right? Definitely avoid overdoing it. And a lot of times you see that with especially newer employees who are trying to, you know, impress upon their supervisor that they are the person for the job. You know, sometimes they'll overdo it, you know, and even the veteran employees, trying to show an employee, here's how it's done or whatnot. And then we tend to do a little bit too much. But I always ask that you work in a manner that will allow you to make it back to work tomorrow. That's what you do every single day. And when you suffer that one back injury, it affects not just your work life, but your personal life. Things that you would normally do at home, you're no longer able to do it. The kids who are running towards you for you to pick them up and you can't pick them up because the back hurts, they wouldn't understand that, right? Nor the grandkids. It's the same thing. I did ask earlier, anyone of y'all ever suffered a serious back injury before? Serious back injury is one? All right. But it affects your personal life big time, so just keep that in mind. All right. Just like carpal tunnel injury, folks will sit at computers and they type all day, and all of a sudden they have issues with the little wrist area right there as far as the carpal tunnel is concerned. It's the same thing. It's built up over a period of time. A back injury very rarely, happens because of a one specific event that just occurred. 9 out of 10 times, it's a buildup. As far as lifting them properly for years, eventually will give. Right, so it's not the one event that generally causes, unless you're in a motor vehicle accident, unless there's a fall, those you can pinpoint and say, here's what caused this injury or whatnot. But outside of that, the repetitive lifting that you guys are doing can lead to a back injury. So it's important that we apply proper lifting techniques at all times. As far as how you sleep, that's big. And which way is best for you to sleep? On the back, the side, the tummy? What's the best way to sleep to avoid a back injury and to protect yourself when you get hurt?
On your side.
On your side? That's good. Right? On your side works. Right? On the side works. What about on the tummy? No? No. Right? So if it's going to be on your side, that works, and it can be also on your back. And they recommend that you elevate your feet, after you've suffered a back injury, to make sure that you keep the feet up a little. But I've started out sleeping like that every single night. That's how I start, sleeping on my side. And I always wake up, like that. That's how it is, flat on my stomach. But make an effort. But there's some times, where I try to go to sleep and I can't because of my back pain. And the only thing that will take care of that, is when you lay on that floor, that hard surface. Your painkillers? Yeah, but now food, that stuff. Got you. But if that works for you, great. But sometimes you need, the bed has to be a little bit more firm, or the area that you're sleeping on. But do what works best for you though, and we want to get away from that, as far as those pills and whatnot, and do some other things. As far as even adjusting the mattress that you sleep on and whatnot. I think they say you have to change the mattress after how many years? 8 years, right? That's what they say. They recommend that you change it. And we rotate them, we flip them in the whole nine. So as far as the position that you generally sleep in, if you're on your side, they ask that you slightly bend your knee, or on your back with a pillow underneath. That's the option that we want to go with. As far as in the stomach, it's generally a no-no, sleeping on your tummy. And a lot of times you'll have different recommendations, though, depending on what your health condition is. Because I'll tell you, when I start sleeping on that back, anyone of y'all snore in this room? Right, and someone will let you know that you're snoring, right? And they want you on your tummy, because that's how you go to sleep, is what they want you to do, man. But that's not the best position. All right, so number 2 that says is correct, and we'll back it up again. Number 2 is on your side, with knees slightly bent, or on your back with a pillow underneath your knees, right? That's the recommendation. So try to stay off your stomach, and try to figure out a different way to deal with the snoring. All right, so as far as ergonomics is concerned, it's how we fit the employee to the area that the employee is working in. And a lot of times you guys go out and you create things. I'm not sure if there's anyone system maintenance, no. But a lot of times you go out and you actually are digging that trench you're going and perform work in. It's not like you're going into an established location to work. But wherever you are working, just make sure that you are fit properly in that environment as far as where you're working. Make sure that it doesn't put you in a situation where you have to constantly twist and turn, especially when you have heavy load, when you're moving heavy load. So try to avoid those as best as you can. That's ideally, as far as how I want to pick up an object. It has to be it's already in my power zone. They say use a table if you can, if there's one present and whatnot. That's perfect. So if I work in a warehouse, then that's great. That's my setup. That's what I want to work with. But for you guys, as far as what you do, it's not always like that. A lot of times, like I said, it's on the ground. It's on the asphalt, the pavement, as far as where you begin to perform your work. But just make sure that we try to bring the power zone to that work area as frequently as possible. And again, the power zone, it's the area directly in front of your body, between your shoulder and your upper thigh, directly in front of your body, real close to your body is where it should be. If possible, and we're able to use a cart, to move a load, by all means, we want to go ahead and do that. They had the forklift training here a couple of weeks ago or whatnot. That's what that's for, if you're able to. You don't do it by hand unless you absolutely have to. So, which is better? Pushing a cart, we just loaded it up. I just said cart is better than lifting. So we just loaded up the cart. It came up, right? My bad. Right? So it is better to push a cart than to pull it. And when you begin to push, again, you're leading and you're using your leg muscles, to move the load forward versus relying, again, firm grip with your hands still when you're pulling backwards, but you're using a little bit of your back to make that happen just the same way. All right, so we prevent back injuries by using proper lifting techniques. And proper lifting techniques requires us to bend at our knees, keep the back in its natural form. And if I were to freeze you guys again, and you just look and see where you're seated right now, it's still only a couple of you guys, who are seated upright. I see you just adjusted on that, right? But I don't know if it's because some of y'all worked last night or whatnot, but try your best, to sit in an upright position, and keep that the chin up and all that good stuff when you sit. And that can help you to prevent that injury. We ask that rather than using your back to lift, that you use your leg muscles. You push off with your leg muscles after you've grabbed that load. And the quick giveaway, like I just mentioned, is that if you start to round your back over as you lift in any object, that's how you know you're not doing it the proper way. Even deadlifts for those who lift weights. Anyone of y'all lift weights in this room? Weightlifter, right? And even with deadlift, the weight is right there, right at your toes. And you're going to reach over there. And they never ever use proper lifting techniques with this, though, because your feet, your knees are never shoulder width apart like you should, and bent properly or whatnot. Deadlift, you go down there, and they're going to raise that load all the way back up here. But what you'll notice is that the back is not rounded like this. The moment they do this, it's over. You cannot bring that load back up. So the back is always looking like this when they're coming back up, and the knees are bent, and then they lock that knee back up when they get all the way to the top. So here are some of the steps that you need to remember for lifting properly. We ask that your feet should always be about shoulder width apart. We ask that you squat, you kneel, you crouch, you bring your power zone to the area where you're actually doing the lifting. Use your palms, avoid pinch grips. Because sometimes we don't intentionally drop the load. Sometimes it falls because we don't have a firm grip on it. Shouldn't be a jerky lift. Should be smooth, especially if it's heavy. It should be a smooth lift as far as what you do to get the load up to the level where you were standing. As far as when you're changing directions, don't twist, don't pivot. We ask that you take a step, move, and give yourself that 3 feet, at least 3 feet from where you're going to place that load. And the same process as far as how we pick that load up, that's the same way that we're going to lower that load if it's on the lower level. If possible, reduce the amount of weight that we lift. And if you look at a manhole lid that you're removing, a manhole lid, there's no way to reduce the weight of that. It is what it is. So if you're able to use a tool to remove it, by all means, that's what we want to do. And in a case, as I mentioned, with the cone top type manholes that you're working with as far as removing that lid, you don't have enough room up there to slide it off and let it sit up top anyway. So it's going to fall to the ground. It's perfectly fine that it falls to the ground, and then we're going to have to pick it up, and raise it up there. So when you're putting it back in place, definitely it's going to be a two-man operation as far as how we pick it up and make it happen. If you have handles and straps, use them, but if there are no handles or strap, just make sure that we go for opposite ends as far as when we get in that firm grip on that object that we're lifting. We ask that you get help, ask for help. the number one cause of injuries on the job, every single day, or number one type of injuries on the job every single year it's actually back injuries, right? It is back injuries. Whether it's from a motor vehicle accident or from just lifting or whatnot, it's back injuries. So do ask for help, and don't try to do it alone, especially if it's heavy or if it has an awkward shape to it. All right, as far as body management is what they call it, we ask that you take timeouts every now and then. Take timeouts. Supervisor wants you to be productive in the whole nine. We get it, but having to perform a very difficult task now, very tedious, physically demanding or whatnot. I got it done, or I'm halfway done. It is perfectly fine, that you take a break, you do that little stretch or whatnot before you go back working again. But as far as managing your back, it begins with you loosening up those muscles before you even get started. Kind of like the Braves. I know y'all been to a Braves game, right? And the one thing that you'll see them do before the game starts, what are they all out here doing? They're stretching all day, right? You'll never ever see them get up and go to work without stretching. And they don't work half as hard as you guys do, as far as what they're just out here having fun. And they're saying the only way I get to play all these games for the entire season is if I prepare my body for it. And they're stretching all day. They have different ways of doing it, but they're loosening up those muscles all day. So I really encourage you guys, especially those who do the heavy lifting, I encourage you guys to ignore what others might think as you guys are out there stretching or whatnot, and get it done, because you benefit when you loosen up. You benefit when you work safely. All right, there are certain situations, certain functions that you perform when your back is at high risk for having an accident, and it's when you're bending, lifting, and reaching and twisting and the whole nine. So we ask that you try to minimize those, and for cases where you have to, just make sure that you exercise as much caution as possible. That's what I mentioned here again as far as stretch first. It is important. So stretch in the beginning, but also throughout the course of your shift. And even at the end of the day, it's perfectly okay, again, that you cool down by doing a little bit of light stretching and all that before you jump in the vehicle and head home. So these are the 5 stretches that I really wanted to get to. As far as, we're going to get up right now, if y'all don't mind, real quickly. And we're going to do it. It's the first. We're going to do it here today, and I encourage you guys to do it on your own. And if you're a bit concerned about working out in front of anyone, it is perfectly fine. Do it at home, or you go to your bathroom break or whatnot, you do a little bit of stretch there or whatnot. You don't have to do it in front of anyone. So we're going to start out with the standing back man. And what that is feet shoulder width apart, and you're going to put your hands on your waist, right? And I want you to lean back as far as you can, let your head touch your heels all the way back, all right? Then you let it go. It should feel really good, right? We're going to let it go. We're going to do it again. Do a couple more of them, all the way back, all right? Then we're going to let it go. Right? One more time. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself. One more time. And we'll let it go. All right? Then we're going to do the arm and shoulder stretch. And all we ask you to do is invert your arms directly in front of you and clasp them. Right? And do what you can. Don't hurt yourself. And then we're going to roll the shoulder blades and push your hands away from your body. Away from your body. You should feel it in your arm and shoulders. And then we're going to release. Right? We'll do it again all the way out. And release. One more time, all the way out. And release. That's good. And if you're close to a wall right now, it's perfectly fine. I want to get your back on the wall because I don't want you to fall. So where to rest your back? We're going to do the hamstring stretch. I'm going to skip a little bit and do the hamstring stretch. So what I'd like for you to do is, even that door works. If you don't close it, do whatever works for you. Just make sure that you don't fall. So what we're going to do is grab the thigh, right? And we're going to extend it all the way out. Keep your back on that wall so you don't fall, right?
Sorry.
All right, no, you're good. All right, now let it go. We'll do it again. All the way out. And we're going to let it go. All right, let's go to the other one. The other one. All the way out. All right. Then we're going to let it go. That's good. I see you using the chair back there. That's perfectly fine, too. That's fine. All the way out again. And then we're going to let it go. Now, as far as the thigh stretch is concerned, if you have a wall, again, hand on that wall, because we don't want you to fall, and we're going to grab that leg, the ankle, and we're going to pull it up. Right? That's what that is. You should feel that one. You should feel this one all the way in your thigh, the front especially of your thigh. You should feel it. So pull it all the way up. Then we'll let it go. We'll do it one more time, all the way up. Then we're going to let it go. We're going to switch sides. All the way up. There you go. Good job. And we're going to let it go. One more time, all the way up. Then we're going to let it go. Now the hip stretch. The hip stretch, right? If you grab this chair, but it's cloth, so I don't want you to mess it up. But I'll tell you how to do this one, right? What you're going to do is you're going to put your foot on the bumper of your vehicle, right? Put a foot up on that bumper and just lean forward on it is what you're doing. Right? I was going to say the chairs, but I don't want you to mess the chairs up. Right? And just lean forward on it. And then you switch, and it's the same thing. Just lean forward on it a little. Keep it back in its natural form as you do that. Right? Those are the 5 stretches that they actually recommend that you do to prevent that back injury. Is that something that you guys think you can do on a daily basis? Do it. Right? Do it. And I don't like comparing departments or anything like that. You may have a seat again. But I'll tell you what. If you check those guys out over there at DOT, we got them doing that. So it was during the winter storm when they had that emergency response or whatnot. We had Bob Ott came down there with the county manager. And they saw the employees working out, stretching before they got started, and they were impressed. I'm like, no need to be. I mean, that's what they do, is what I told them, And but they made a big deal. Didn't think that the employees would actually do that. So I don't impress them, but do it because you benefit. And if you think, as I said, for 1 minute that someone might ridicule you because they see you stretching or whatnot, I mean, bump them, but do it because you benefit. And if you're still concerned, you don't have to do it in their presence. You can do that on your own. But I highly recommend that you do that so that as you're working towards retirement, you want to enjoy life. Right? You don't want to go through retirement and you're sitting on the porch, watching folks doing things that you can't do anymore, watching them drive by and do that all day. That's not what you're working for. You're working real hard so that when you retire, you can enjoy that life. So just make sure that you put yourself in that position to make it happen when that time comes. All right? What we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break, 10 minutes. We're going to stretch our legs, and we're going to come back, and we're going to go all the way and get to that.